I can't stop thinking about Pluribus. It's one of those delightful shows where the more time I spend processing it, the better it gets. After season 1, I have a lot of theories about the underlying themes and subtext of the show that may hint at possible directions the series could head in the future. To me, Pluribus's most interesting and horrifying theme is colonialism. Spoilers ahead for season 1 of Pluribus. The title Pluribus reveals what the show is about. It's a Latin word most famously used in the United States' official motto, E pluribus unum, roughly translating to from many, one. This references the original 13 British colonies forming a single country after the American Revolutionary War. Pluribus is also about many becoming one. In the pilot, the genetic code for an RNA virus is discovered from an alien transmission, originating from a star hundreds of light years away. Humanity synthesizes the virus, trying to elucidate its purpose via animal testing. However, a researcher carelessly defies safety protocols and gets infected, revealing the nature of the virus. It causes every infected human to experience what Pluribus calls the joining. They have a seizure and reawaken as part of a collective consciousness, integrating the memories of every infected individual. Billions of individuals are reborn as one. E pluribus unum. The connection to American history reveals what I see as Pluribus's central theme, colonialism. An alien virus colonizes the minds of billions of humans, transforming them into something different. However, the virus doesn't work on everyone. The show's central conflict is how 13 immune humans react to their predicament. Protagonist Carol is determined to find a way to undo the joining because the event kills her partner. Through her interactions with the hive mind, who the show calls the others, Carol learns the joining killed 800 million people, roughly 10% of Earth's human population, the largest mass casualty event in human history. I believe the virus represents colonialism, where Earth and humanity stand in for various colonized lands and people throughout world history. However, the title makes me focus specifically on the colonization of the Americans by European settlers, specifically the United States, which arose primarily from British colonies. The choice of a virus specifically makes this connection stark. European colonization introduced several virulent diseases to the Americas that indigenous people lacked immunity to because of geographic isolation, most notably smallpox. Smallpox is hypothesized to be a contributor to an event called the Great Dying, where the indigenous population of the Americas declined by up to 90% by some estimates. Granted, it's unlikely that disease was intentionally used as a bioweapon, as there's limited historical evidence for this. Instead, disease likely hastened population decline that was already occurring because of colonial practices like driving indigenous people from their ancestral lands so that settlers could move in, and forced labor or slavery, which would have made the already destabilized indigenous population more vulnerable to disease. If Pluribus is standing in as a metaphor for colonialism, it portrays the simplified version of events, often designed to conveniently reduce blame of European settlers by presenting the depopulation of the Americas as an inevitability caused by disease, rather than the more likely complex reality where a significant degree of blame rests on the actions of colonial powers. The 800 million people who die in the pilot are not the final casualties of the Pluribus virus. Over season 1, more ways the virus kills humans are revealed to the immune and by proxy the audience. If someone outside the hive mind becomes angry with the others, the hive experiences mass seizures, killing further millions. Anger immobilizing the entire infected population could be interpreted as analogous to a prey animal freezing in an attempt to hide from a predator, which could be a defense mechanism to avoid detection by the uninfected. It's also reminiscent of the human freeze response traumatized people have in reaction to danger or reminders of their trauma. However, the seizures aren't the primary way the virus threatens to kill billions. The virus renders the others unable to feed themselves. They're unable to harm any living thing, including all plants and animals, meaning they cannot access any source of food that hasn't already died. Because of this huge limitation, they rely on the already existing global food supply, which will gradually be depleted if not replaced. To supplement their diet, they turn to one of the greatest human taboos, cannibalism. The others cook and eat the bodies of their dead in order to stave off the threat of global starvation. This is used to contrast the others with the immune, as most human cultures have strong taboos against cannibalism. In particular, Carol buries her partner and is frustrated by a pack of wolves who keep trying to dig up her grave and eat her decaying flesh. This protection of the dead contrasts the willingness of the others to eat their dead. They're more like the wolves than Carol, scavengers forced to turn to any available food source to survive. However, I wouldn't say that cannibalism is being used to show the others as inhuman, as some human cultures practice cannibalism despite the dangers of prions and other diseases. I would liken the cannibalism of the others to something like the Donner Party or Flight 571, where desperation forces people to eat their dead to survive. Regardless, there's something unnerving and horrifying about the thought of your friends and neighbors suddenly gaining a taste for human flesh. By making infected humans unable to feed themselves in the long term, the Pluribus virus threatens to depopulate Earth just as smallpox contributed to the depopulation of the Americas. Yet the others claim to be happy with their existence, describing their experience as a permanent bliss, so euphoric they feel a biological imperative to convert the immune. This is how successful viruses work. They create conditions for their own spread in order to ensure their survival regardless of the impacts on their host. Thus, a successful mind virus would need to make the infected believe they need to spread the virus. This makes the Pluribus virus feel very biological. We even learned that the others are working on a cure for Carol's immunity, to forcibly join her without her consent as they did billions of others. Early on, they lie, claiming to care about Carol's will, but have no qualms with using eggs Carol froze prior to the joining to concoct a cure for Carol's immunity, specifically against her wishes. The eggs were supposed to be used to create a child, not thwart her immunity to an alien mind virus. This shows the hidden cruelty of the others. Finally, the others reveal a plan to build a giant antenna to transmit the virus's RNA sequence, so that they can give the gift of the Pluribus virus to civilizations inhabiting other stars. This reveal raises several questions. First, what is the origin of the virus? Did it originate on the planet who sent the signal humanity received, or did they receive it from a radio transmission just like humanity? It would be easy to imagine the virus spreading throughout the entire galaxy by infecting entire civilizations, then compelling them to broadcast the RNA sequence so it can spread further. The radio signals provide an ingenious source of interplanetary transmission without interplanetary travel. New potential hosts have to synthesize the virus for themselves using materials they have already. This makes the virus a sort of low-tech biological von Neumann probe, designed to replicate itself exponentially with the aim of colonizing the entire universe. This prompts more questions. Did the virus arise naturally via evolution, or was it artificially constructed by aliens for a specific goal? Was it intentionally transmitted so that it could be weaponized against nearby intelligent civilizations for the purposes of colonial expansion? Or was its interstellar spread an accident of evolution interfacing with a technologically advanced society? It could also be engineered via a sort of dark forest logic, where an alien civilization is terrified of other civilizations annihilating them, so they devise the virus as a biological weapon to identify the locations of other advanced civilizations, so they can be removed as threats, either via the virus itself, or more conventional methods like gamma rays or nuclear weapons. Even if there's not a dark forest logic behind the virus, it still has the potential to create a map of all the technologically advanced civilizations in the galaxy via radio transmission. I could imagine a dispassionate or psychopathic alien finding this idea enticing without thinking about the consequences for the other civilizations. I'm not sure if these questions will ever be answered, but I think the more interesting and thus horrifying version of this idea is the one where the spread was intentional, and somewhere else in the Milky Way, an alien civilization plans to expand to the new planets its virus depopulates. Even if depopulation is unintentional, it's hard not to notice that the virus makes the others ideal subjects for colonization. They even become defenseless in response to anger, which incentivizes the others to avoid angering potential colonists. My theory is that regardless of whether aliens actually descend from the sky in some future season, the others' interaction with the immune can be reinterpreted through the lens of how they would be useful to alien colonists. This is further shown by the hive's willingness to engage in play acting or code switching for the benefit of the immune. The others redirect vast resources to act out comforting fantasies in order to placate, comfort, and manipulate the immune. We see this play out in the Season 1 finale where an immune named Kusimayu chooses to undergo the procedure to join the hive. Prior to the transformation, the others act out a scene of domestic life that would have existed prior to the joining for Kusimayu. This facade drops instantly after she joins the hive mind, showing that it was only being performed to placate her. Now that Kusimayu is infected, the others don't have to pretend to be people anymore and revert to their natural state. The others are willing to treat the immune like gods, suggesting that they could also treat alien colonists like this, should they desire to view a play-acted version of human society. The others are willing to do anything in service of pleasing those they interact with, even giving Carol a nuke, suggesting that they would bend to the whims of alien colonists and disarm themselves should an alien ask. They're even willing to express consent for sexual encounters with the immune, which reflects colonists sexually subjugating Native women in colonial America. Should future colonists seek to sleep with members of the others, it seems they would offer anybody up regardless of what the individual would have thought prior to the joining. This is very concerning. In addition, Carol discovers that the others are unable to lie, which is useful for alien colonists because it means any knowledge the previous civilization attained can be easily used for colonial purposes without the possibility of resistance. They've effectively created an encyclopedia of human knowledge to be read at any time of their choosing. Resistance to revealing the truth takes so much effort that every member of the others spontaneously bursts into tears when Carol tries to force them to tell her something they want to conceal. The others' seeming inability to protect themselves means that the immune are humanity's only remaining defense against alien colonization. Should they succumb to the virus prior to alien arrival, humanity could permanently be subjugated under the yoke of an alien empire. Because of this, I believe Carol and Manousos are right. The others are not well, and they're not the people they used to be before the joining. They're afflicted with a biological weapon that may give them the ability to communicate globally at the speed of light, but they're also deeply sick. Unable to feed themselves or protect themselves from abuse by malicious actors. The only way to protect humanity from falling to annihilation is thus to reverse the joining. As of the conclusion of Season 1, there are 2 concrete leads on a potential cure. Via the crying incident, Carol learns the others have discovered how to reverse the process. They just won't share it with the immune. This likely is related to the others' development of a cure for immunity, which requires the use of stem cells from the immune. Perhaps Carol and Manousos could use their stem cells to do the opposite, creating a vaccine that undoes the joining. The second lead comes from Manousos' radio observations. He isolates 8,163 kHz or 8.163 MHz as associated with the others, and discovers the signal intensifies when the others are seizing. 8.163 MHz is a shortwave radio frequency that could be used for global communication by bouncing signals off of the Earth's ionosphere. This likely means that shortwave radio is the medium that propagates information across the others' hive mind. Because radio travels at light speed, it would take a message roughly 4% of a second to travel the diameter of the Earth, a time so short it would be imperceptible to human observers. This suggests that if Carol and Manousos were able to cut a single infected other off from radio signals by trapping them in a Faraday cage, they could potentially prevent the hive mind from communicating them, allowing the administration of a vaccine or further experimentation. It would be especially horrifying if, when placed in a Faraday cage, a member of the others reverted to their individual self, as this would imply that shortwave radio is being used as some form of control by the hive mind. Radio was the medium the broadcast with the RNA sequence was initially transmitted in after all. The virus might have some intrinsic relationship with radio. I couldn't find anything significant about 8.163 MHz in my research, aside from the fact that it falls between a gap in internationally allocated shortwave radio bands, around 7 and 9 MHz. This means there wouldn't be many pre-existing radio signals that could interfere with the specific frequency the others use to communicate. It also falls just below the most active shortwave radio band of 9.3 to 10 MHz, which is used because it's one of the most consistent bands to transmit across the Earth, given that the natural variability of the ionosphere makes certain bands less reliable at times. It also provides an ulterior motive for the others shutting down many parts of the electrical grid, as all electronic equipment emits electromagnetic waves that could add small amounts of noise to their radio signals. My main question with the use of radio for communication inside the hive mind is how the human body is being used to transmit and receive signals. As humans, like any object of non-zero temperature, emit blackbody radiation as heat. However, in humans, this is in the infrared band rather than the shortwave radio band. Humans also don't have precise control over this effect. I'm interested to see where the story goes in future seasons of Pluribus. Even if the only alien organisms that arrive on Earth are the virus itself, I still think it serves as an excellent metaphor for colonialism, given the tendency of viruses to favor propagation to new organisms, like settlers arriving to new lands with their sights set on inhabiting them regardless of who's already there. The world colonized by the aliens of Pluribus may be the human body itself, which is a horrifying thought. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoy analytical essays about media, in particular science fiction, consider subscribing. I plan to share my thoughts, theories, and interpretations of other shows, books, and games in future videos. More videos like this one are coming in the near future.